So will the Adams defection help or hurt the Liberals? Can she win the Liberal nomination? And if she's successful, even the election? Joining me from our studio in Winnipeg is the Parliamentary Secretary to the new Minister of National Defence, James Bezan. Jack Harris is the NDP's National Defence critic. I should have had you guys around earlier. And in St. John's, Newfoundland is Scott Bryson. He is the Liberal finance critic, and he joins us as well from Halifax. Good to see you all, gentlemen. Thanks for making time. It's been a very busy Monday, for a Monday where you're all in your ridings. But James Bezan, let's start with you. So Eve Adams says that she went to the Liberal Party because your party and your leader was mean-spirited and it was a party full of bullies. Is there any truth to that?
I can tell you that Eve never brought any of these concerns forward to any of us in caucus before. And we all know, according to the memo that came out today from the Conservative Party President, John Walsh, is that he had informed Eve on January 29th that she was not going to be allowed to run for the Conservatives in the next election because of past discretions.
So you think it was all about looking for another job and had nothing to do with the way that maybe she felt she had been personally treated?
Well, I can tell you that Eve has been out there working on behalf of the Conservative Party and voting in favor of all of our tax cut plans for families. She was out there advocating against legalization of marijuana, and now she's going to have to square that circle as she tries to turn herself into a Liberal.
Do you think it looks bad, though, for the Prime Minister to lose a parliamentary secretary at this juncture of his, of his mandate, as we're in an election year? To have anyone walk away doesn't always look great.
Look, timing on these things are always never known, and I can tell you that this is why a lot of voters get cynical when you see this type of floor crossing, when you see people that go out and get elected on one agenda and then determine that, no, I guess I was wrong, I'm going to go run on another, and that's exactly what Eve said this morning, and it just doesn't at all match up with any of her past record. It doesn't match up at all with what she campaigned on in the last election in Mississauga, and so it really is something that jades Canadians when they look at politicians who seem to be chameleons. Okay,
so what do you say to that, Scott Bryson? You have some experience with
speaking of chameleons,
evolving political views yourself. Do you think that this is opportunistic of Eve Adams? The fact that, we know that she wanted to run in a Conservative riding and she was told there was none for her. So, it looks like she was just looking for a political job.
Well, I think I heard Eve Adams loud and clear today. She was attracted to the most progressive and open leader in the House of Commons, a leader who's practicing a new kind of politics. Justin Trudeau is not a hyper-partisan leader like Tom Mulcair or Stephen Harper. And she referenced, in fact, her municipal background. She was a municipal politician for some time. In municipal politics, you solve people's problems, regardless of partisanship. Justin Trudeau brings a very different type of leadership to Canada, and a lot of Canadians are doing the same thing. They're joining the Liberals to support Justin Trudeau.
I understand you're trying to answer it, but I need to interrupt because some of it has to be challenged. She's seen Mr. Trudeau as leader for months now. It was only after she was rejected as a Conservative candidate that she suddenly had this awakening and wanted to become one of Justin Trudeau's Liberals. How do you square those two things?
Well, first of all, a lot of Canadians are making that same journey in watching Justin Trudeau in action as a leader. Whether you're talking about his tough decisions on the Senate to sexual harassment, this guy's not afraid to make tough decisions. At the same time, he is the least partisan leader in the House of Commons. He's the one who's most open to ideas and to new people, and beyond that, he's a leader who's a genuinely nice guy. And frankly, Canadians want leaders who are actually capable of being decent, open-minded people.
So let me ask you this then. Why would your party want someone who had been discredited by her former party, who had been found to not been playing fair when it came to a nomination race, and who they didn't want to run anymore? What's the benefit of Eve Adams for your party?
She served as a parliamentary secretary in this government that's hardly discredited. We will hear they will throw all kinds of things at Eve over the next period of time. The fact is, at some point in a political caucus, particularly one as hyper-partisan as the Conservatives, at some point people may just say, I've had enough of this crap, I'm moving on. And the fact that there is a leader and a party like the Liberal Party under the leadership of Justin Trudeau there as an option, I think, you know, that's the kind of thing that Canadians and partisans within the Conservative Party. Keep in mind, there's a lot of also progressive Conservative-type Canadians who are making the same kind of decision that Eve Adams
let's let Jack Harris weigh in. You're sort of watching it from aside. Your leader today, he was a Quebec Liberal cabinet minister provincially. He said today the NDP would never accept a Conservative. However, the party has brought a former Bloc MP into the fold. Are you shutting the door to any potential recruits?
Look, you know, this is about someone crossing the floor into a party that yesterday she was opposed to. She was a parliamentary secretary, not just an MP. Yesterday she was in favor of income splitting. Today she's opposed to it. Yesterday she was telling the pro-life, the campaign Life, she was pro-life. Today she's supporting pro-choice. And nobody can believe that, really. So, you know, when it's hot on the heels of being told she can't run for that party, it's clearly about her getting a job. We've said that that's a cynical move, and when people do that, they should run go back to their constituents and run. That's what we've said to the independent former Bloc MP who's going to run the next time for us. This is a different matter. She's crossing the floor, joining them now, just like Scott Bryson's son. So people are cynical about that. I think James is right. And why Mr. Trudeau would welcome her with open arms without making her, letting her run for them, because you can be sure she'll get the nomination if we had this press conference today, you know, despite all this talk of open nominations. So I think it only leaves Canadians to be more cynical about the two old parties.
Well, Scott Bryson, let's go back to you on that issue of creating cynicism or fostering cynicism. You did cross the floor, excuse me, from the Conservatives to the Liberals in 2003, right? What goes into a decision to switch parties like that? How do you justify it to the people who voted for you? How do you explain it?
I was elected twice as a progressive Conservative, and I've been elected 4 times as a Liberal. It's an excruciatingly tough decision. It was tough for me. It would be tough for Eve. But you have to look at the political landscape as it exists under the leadership of the parties, and you have to actually determine which political leader and party best represents the kind of Canada you want to create. And I felt more comfortable with the Liberals, and she feels more comfortable with the Liberals. And if you look at her concerns expressed today about income splitting, when you look at the C.D. Howe Institute report on income splitting, that only 15% of Canadians benefit from it. She was expressing the same
she was
kind
on the
of
other
concern
side last
that
week,
Jim
Scott,
Flaherty. She was expressing. May I speak? I didn't interrupt you. But she was expressing the same kind of concern that the late Jim Flaherty expressed about income splitting.
And I'm happy to have
she
a
joined
policy
a party that's going to fight for the Canadians who need the help the most.
And I'm happy
the
to
Liberal
have that
Party under the
policy.
leadership of Justin Trudeau.
Scott Bryson, I'm happy to have that policy conversation. You know, it's an important one. But let me do one go-around on the cabinet shuffle, if I can. I'll start with you, Jack Harris. What did you make today of the news that Jason Kenney is now the Minister of National Defence, Rob Nicholson to Foreign Affairs, and then I'll get your take, Scott Bryson.
Well, it's an interesting move. Nicholson, of course, has been a loyal soldier, both in justice and in defence, moving to foreign affairs, despite the fact that he doesn't speak French and that he won't be able to do the job that the previous minister, John Baird, did. And Pierre Poilievre into, he's been one of the most divisive foot soldiers of Mr. Harper, as parliamentary secretary to the Prime Minister and for the championing the Unfair Elections Act. He could tell you black as white every day with a straight face for a year, so he'll do well if anyone believes him. Jason Kenney in defence, he's going to do the job that we just heard him do on TV, doing the ideological stuff. But he has a history of getting into trouble in these departments, digging in a little too deep and trying to change things and making a mess of things like he did with the temporary foreign workers program. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles that in the short term. He's got a lot of problems to solve, and we'll see how he does.
Scott Bryson, 30 seconds for you on what you make of the moves today.
Well, the ascension of Pierre Poilievre sends a signal that the more partisan you are and the more of a partisan pit bull you are in the Harper team, the higher you're likely to go. So I expect we'll see more of that kind of behavior in the backbenches. The other thing is that Harper calls all the shots. Let's face it, there's never been a more centralized decision-making government or where the Prime Minister calls all the shots as this government. So don't expect any change in policy direction, any openness to helping Canadians who need the help the most, any social progressivity. This is the same old, same old.
Okay, I got to let James Bezan have the last word. You're not going to criticize your new boss, but what do you make of how it's going to unfold?
Well, I'm very excited about working with Jason Kenney as the Minister of National Defence. He's always been one of the hardest working and has been recognized by Parliament as being one of the hardest working members of Parliament. So I know that he's going to put his entire attention into national defence, and I'm looking forward to being part of his team. And of course, I'm wishing Rob Nicholson all the best. He was fantastic to work with. I know that he's going to bring that same experience and expertise to the foreign affairs file, and he doesn't have a lot of getting up to speed on because so much of national defense is foreign affairs.
Okay, listen, gentlemen, I appreciate you making time on your first day back in the ridings. You know, you're not here, but you still keep us busy somehow. Thank you all, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Rosie.
Okay.